Take two.
All right, take two. Good afternoon and welcome. We're going to start the meeting now. Bill Hunter and Lee Moss are going to give us an update on the scholarship program, and then we will roll into the first presentation. Bill, Lee.
Hi, I'm Bill Hunter. For those of you who don't know me.
He has a magnetic personality.
I guess so. All right, where's it coming from? Hang on a second. Something in the kitchen. There's something in the kitchen that's doing this. Jim, we need to cut your present. Oh, there we go. Okay. And of course, I need to go stop spotlighting me. Okay. I need to go. So everybody else can see what we're doing. This, in case you haven't figured it out, we're doing this for the first time. Doing all of this. All right. Why I have my computer sitting on the table once else is seeing, and so that I have some control over what everybody else is seeing. Let's try that again. Hi, I'm Bill Hunter. I'm the chapter vice president of the 7x24 Northwest Exchange. 7x24 Exchange Northwest. Welcome. I don't know if anybody on this. Well, okay, it doesn't look like it is working. All right, well, we tried. Anyway, my friend Lee Moss and I have been working, as well as others, have been working on a scholarship program for technology scholarships from the 7x24 Exchange Northwest chapter for the last year and a half. Yeah. COVID obviously made things a little difficult, a little challenging, but we have worked our way through the process, and we now have a memorandum of agreement with Shoreline Community College, which we will be executing here in the next month or so, and providing to start 2 $2,500 scholarships to students going into technology, women in technology, data centers, and so on. That's going to start, the first signups for those scholarships will be in February of next year. So that's where we're at. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help. Look forward to working with you on that. Yep. One of the nice things about Shoreline, as well as other foundations like it, is that they are a 501c3. So basically, we can actually have people donate to the same scholarship fund in our name, and it becomes a tax deductible donation for them. So that way we can actually go out and work with other partners and other companies in the Puget Sound area, Western Washington. And if they make a donation to the scholarship fund in our name, we get to say, hey, look, here's another scholarship in our name, but they get a tax break. So that's about it. Today, we'd like to welcome you. As I've said before, this is our first in-person meeting it's been over 2 years. It's been a while. Technology has helped us and frustrated us since we first started this journey to do these online. It's frustrating us a little today as we start with our first hybrid meeting, but I'm glad you all were here. I'm glad the folks that are online are here. Hopefully you can all hear me. Billy, are you there?
I am here and I can hear you.
Geez, it works. I love it. Love it when technology works. So with that, Jim, if you want to go ahead and introduce our first speaker.
Our first speaker is joining us via Teams from Schneider Electric's Innovation and Executive Briefing Center in St. Louis, Missouri. His name is Mike Sanders, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Innovation Executive Briefing Center in St. Louis, Missouri. My name is Mike Sanders. As you can imagine, being from St. Louis, we're all pretty excited around here about baseball. So I don't know where you guys stand on the baseball front, but keep an eye on St. Louis because some really cool things are happening right now. Today, what I want to do is I want to introduce you to our interactive and integrated healthcare experience. This is an experience that we have developed through our software solutions around healthcare in particular, but really around meeting the needs of people in industry and in the healthcare industry in this case. And what I want to do is give you a real good understanding of exactly the future of smart hospitals, future of integrating software so that the buildings and the medical clinical staff can work together to make a great experience for the patients. Now, when we talk about healthcare, we really want to talk about the stakeholders in the healthcare system, the providers themselves. There are basically four groups in this. Those are the administrative folks, the CIOs, CFOs, people with a 100,000-foot view of the oversight of the entire operation. We also bring into account the IT folks, the people who are bringing all the information systems, the facility managers who are responsible for managing the envelope of the building, and of course the clinical staff. By that I mean people really in charge of all the different departments, the chief of nursing and the chief of infection control, maybe even chief of staff, folks that are really responsible for directly interacting and helping the patient recover. Now, when you take those four groups, what we found over the course of our interviews is that there are 5 priorities that they all have that we're trying to accomplish with them. And the first one is patient outcome and experience. One of the things that is really contributing a lot to the way that healthcare operates today is the HCAHPS score. And as you're probably well aware, the HCAHPS score is a publicly available review of their care experience. And it's kind of like Yelp on steroids, really. And what we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to create a great patient outcome and a great experience for them so that the hospital gets not only a good reputation, but because so much of their financial remuneration is tied to that, meaning insurance companies pay based on the level of HCAHPS score. So that's something that everyone is focused on. The second element is financial performance. Because hospitals operate on very thin margins, it's important for us to optimize everything we can in terms of cost and operation to make sure that those financial goals are being able to be met. Safety and security are of paramount importance to every hospital with intrusion protection as well as just infection protection and keeping everyone in the hospital safe. The fourth priority is regulatory compliance and making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and everything is done in such a way that the red tape is minimized or at least handled in the right fashion. And that is an effort that everyone across the hospital system must participate in. And finally, the workflow optimization of employees. With staff shortages and having to do more with less, the opportunity to optimize everything that the work staff is doing is critical for all of the hospital's needs on there. So now that we've identified the users and what their needs are, let's talk a little bit about some of the systems in the hospital that are really directly affecting the hospital operation and how we can leverage technology to manage those. In this diagram, what you see is a lot of the main systems that feed into the hospital. Across the top, the 5 green squares that you see there are products that Schneider Electric makes specifically for it. And that includes building management for air exchanges and HVAC and building operation. Power management is the switchgear that brings the power into the building and provides power to a lot of the different devices within the hospital, while energy management is how we optimize those devices and make sure they're only using just as much energy as is needed. Emergency power and testing has to do with backups, generation, and creating a scenario where we're fault tolerant and predictive about any potential failures. And finally, access control, intrusion, and biometrics give us the opportunity to prevent people from accessing the hospital if they're not well. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner, you see a series of blue squares. These are systems that Schneider Electric does not necessarily produce, but what we have is a lot of very strong partnerships that we have a lot of input into the development and to the orientation of those systems. And those include the real-time location service, which is critical to our system, the voice over IP, visitor management, and lighting. All those different controls are things, like I said, we have very strong partnerships in and can be very proactive about designing and developing with them. The squares in the bottom left-hand corner in red are the ones that are basically built in and woven into the hospital's culture. These are systems that we really don't have a lot of control over. Probably systems have been working in the hospitals for decades that they're very used to and comfortable with and really are ingrained in their everyday operation. While we don't have a lot of influence over the selection of those, we will need to be able to interface with them, get information into and out of those systems. And they include the nurse call system, regulatory compliance, admissions and administration, even as much as fire system, fire safety, and elevators and just other areas of those types of systems. Now, tying everything together in the dots that you see in the network, that is the IP network. That is everything powered over Ethernet and connecting everything together. And right in the middle of that is EcoStruxure for Healthcare, which is basically the overseeing system that not only allows those systems to run, but gets information and optimizes everything between all the interactive systems that you see. Now, the reason we went through all this is to give you a flavor for how we go about the process, identifying the stakeholders, finding out their needs, and then figuring out how to leverage technology to make those needs happen. So the journey starts here in the waiting room or the admissions area. Maybe you've got a mobile device where you can type in to check in. Maybe we have scanners in the parking lot that see your license plate and start the check-in process for you. Or maybe you come into the building and you actually sign into a kiosk like this one. Or someone behind this desk would sign in for you. Whatever it is, what we're basically doing is we're taking the patient, we're tying their electronic medical record to them and putting an RTLS device in the wristband to make sure that we're able to track them wherever they go throughout the hospital. Now, the RTLS is the real-time location service. And what the RTLS does is it locates patients, staff, and assets within the hospital to make sure that we know where all the wayfinding is, how to get people and equipment from where they need to be to where they are, okay? So one of the things we're tracking a lot of is details that would affect and impact a patient's experience. And one of those places where we see a lot of that is noise. One of the things we're doing is we're tracking noise throughout the building and giving visual alerts whenever the noise reaches a level that would be inconducive to a patient's recovery process. Once we've checked in, we've got you connected to the RTLS, maybe the first place you go is the doctor's office, where you would sit here in the exam room and sit on this bed here and have the doctor ask you a bunch of questions or do their exam. Typically, they would sit in an area like this one here where the electronic medical record is up. They're entering data into this. This entire doctor's office is connected to the hospital's network, and it may or may not be in the main envelope of the building. The connectivity is critical, whether it's for imaging systems, whether it's for a laboratory, or anything else that we would need to have access to. And one thing we're finding is that not only do we see a lot of doctor's office visits, but we see an awful lot of virtual visits, particularly since the pandemic. And one thing we know is that if that's the case, the doctor's side can't go down. We can't have an outage in those areas. So we're going to use UPSs like this one here to back up everything. This won't be on the critical path. We won't use the main UPSs from the data system. They won't be life safety type devices, but there are hundreds or to thousands of UPSs like that one in the hospital. Every doctor's office, every location that we have is going to run on a network, and some of them are going to have their own network resources themselves. In this case, we've got a doctor's office here that's running on this particular network here, and as you can see, we've got a server, we've got a network switch, got a UPS in this cabinet. The interesting thing about this is if I bend down here, you're going to be able to hear the network, how loud that is. But when I shut the door, you can't even hear it over the HVAC system. This cabinet that APC makes, APC by Schneider Electric makes, basically cuts down all the noise and gives us the opportunity to locate data center anywhere within that facility where we need to. Now, we make a lot of different products that handle ancillary technologies within the hospital. One of those, of course, is the MRI and other imaging. The MRI system is very sensitive to harmonics and noise in the electrical system. And so what we would typically do is install a UPS between the electric power supply and the MRI itself. What that will do is clean that power up so it's easy for us to get good image acquisition. And we've also partnered with Philips, the maker of this MRI, to develop this remote alarm panel so that the technician can see the green light means go, and it's the right time to acquire the image for the doctor or whoever is looking at the MRI from the patient. Of course, we have power systems that feed the operating theater that are separate from the rest of the power in the hospital. And we use stainless steel line isolation modules to be able to make sure that that power is separate from the hospital and completely backed up, because we certainly can't have an outage during an operational procedure. Now, all of the systems that you saw there are being brought together on the network, but a lot of processing and building control has to be done. And where it's being done is cabinets like these. There would be a number of these mounted in different floors of the hospital, and they would contain building controls that are programmable, lighting controls, window shade controls, things that would allow us to do all the types of functions that we need to do within the hospital, and some of the things we'll talk about in the smart patient room in just a minute. All backed up by UPS to make sure that there isn't an outage within this cabinet. Once all those systems have come together and we've gotten a lot of information processing, we use a cabinet like this one, which is basically a screen router. It takes everything that we need and sends pertinent information to different screens around the hospital. One of those screens could be something like this one, an electronic patient door sign. Now, this sign could be blank or dark, or just say Mary Smith, room 312, until someone with authorization would walk up to the screen, in which case they would see all the information about the patient, about anything about whether or not we need to wear specific garments when we're in with the patient, whether or not that patient needs to be in isolation, whether or not they have a latex allergy, if there's a fall risk, or anything else about their care that that doctor or nurse or other staff member would need to know. The whole point of this is that we're preventing anyone who's not authorized from seeing this, but we're providing enough information for the caregiver to be able to manage this. Now, in a shift change, or the handoff as it's called in the hospital, a new nurse coming in may sit at the nurse's station for 40 to 45 minutes with the nurse that is coming off duty, just going over every patient on the floor, what's going on with them, what their needs are. By utilizing a system like this, which has real-time information and all the charting, we'll be able to cut that time down considerably and return that nurse to the floor to deliver care in a much more expedient fashion. And by using the system, the RTLS system, we could actually shield this information from people who are not authorized to see it. Everything you've seen here is about the systems and how they come together, but really the most important piece of this is in the smart patient room itself. The smart patient room is designed to give the patient control back, which is something that they lose the minute they step in the hospital. Once they become a patient in the hospital, they don't have control over their diet. They don't have control over when they can get up and get out of bed. They don't have control over their schedule during the course of the day. They don't even have control over when they can sleep. And so we put them in this position of lack of control, very disconcerting to them. And that really makes the patient experience not as optimal as it could be. So we want to give as much of that back to the patient as possible. Everything in this room that operates electronically is connected to the IP network and powered over Ethernet, including the temperature thermostat for the room. So we can give the patient the opportunity to keep the room at the temperature they want it to be. It could be the noise monitor in here. If I talk louder, you'll see the numbers go higher on the noise monitor. What that means is we're tracking noise that is happening in this room, and alerts can be given to the nurse's station to alert them when there is a noise level that has reached an unacceptable level for a specific patient. All of the nurse call equipment is connected to the Ethernet network as well, and anything that's being done, any equipment that's being used, any vital signs that are being read, everything is automatically piped into the electronic medical record, and no intervention has to be done on a manual charting basis. Now, we give that patient the opportunity to control the lights, the window shades, the temperature, the television set, everything. And we can do it in systems like this with the pillow speaker, where everything is at the patient's fingertips. But in our reviews and in our surveys with so many patients, one thing we found out was there was one method of control that everybody was familiar with and wanted to use, and that was by voice. Alexa, shade open. And we can control the window shade in the room, we can control the lighting, we can control the temperature, the TV, other elements of this room can all be controlled via voice in order to give that patient the opportunity to get what they want. Now, all those are just key, nice features of the room and do a lot for them in terms of just giving them some control back. But one thing we also want to do is we want to be able to deliver information. By using this large screen TV, which becomes basically an information footwall for the patient, we would give them the capability of knowing who their provider is, who the doctor's going to be seeing them, what nurses are on staff at this point in time, any other specialists that they might be seeing or people that they might see walk into the room. So they would be able to identify them immediately. And in fact, they can also have their goals for the day and how they can contribute to their own care and what's happening if they have appointments with different departments or different areas. Any types of communications, like if a nurse wants to say something to the patient, that's all available here. But then we can also see statistics like when they last had pain medication, whether or not they can get out of bed, are they supposed to get up? Those are the kinds of things that we want to be able to deliver them. Now, I was in the hospital with my mom in October of last year when she was there, and one of the things I noticed was I was spending a lot of time with the nurse asking her a bunch of questions about my mom's care. Every minute she spent with me answering my questions was a minute that she couldn't be somewhere else delivering care to another patient. So by utilizing this system effectively within the hospital's protocols and also within privacy requirements, we're able to deliver a lot of the information, not only to the visitor, but also to the patient in the bed, which gives them a lot of peace of mind because they don't have to hit the nurse call button and wait for a response and things. All the information is right there for them. And when they're ready to watch TV, Alexa, full screen. Alexa, full screen. And what happens is that the screen goes back to the full screen area there too. We could give that patient Xbox connectivity or some kind of console. They can play games if they want with their kids and things. It's just, it brings another level of comfort and satisfaction to the patient. Now let's talk a little bit about how this might work in application, okay? So from a facilities perspective, you may have checked in 3 hours ago and you had to go to oncology or radiology or somewhere else, maybe get some labs done, get some blood drawn or things like that. We have already assigned this room to you, and because of the building management system, we know where you are in relationship to the RTLS, where we've located you, and we know how far you are away from this room. This room can be dark, the window shades can be closed, lights are off, there is no air exchange going on, there is no HVAC being pumped in this room. This is in a complete zero energy state until you get to a threshold that we've designed. Maybe it's 4 minutes for the room to cool down to the level we want it to, and everything else to be turned on, lights on, TV on, window shades up, everything, so that when you walk in the room, it's ready for you as a patient. As soon as you're going somewhere else and you leave the room goes back to 0 energy state. So we're creating a savings for energy usage and optimization of that for that individual room. But when you've got a 500-bed wing like we have at Penn Med where we've installed this system, now we're talking about real savings to the hospital as we dynamically manage the energy usage in a specific room. Another application would be something of a clinical nature. So let's say that we have an urgent need in the bed, maybe a code, maybe there's a code blue. The code teams are being dispatched and everything is moving because now we've got a critical event. In a non-smart room, the nurse would walk into this room and he or she would have to first walk over to the wall here and hit this cancel button to record the response time and also let somebody know that the critical alert has been answered, okay? But with a smart patient room connected to the RTLS, as soon as the nurse walks into the room, he or she has the response time recorded and they can go right to the bed and deliver care to the patient. And that few seconds might just make the difference. The crash cart, which may be 10 rooms down, is located and an orderly is being dispatched to bring that crash cart to the room, or in the days of Roomba, maybe that thing is driving itself to the room. And the cardiac doctor, who might be 3 floors away, is paged on his smartwatch. And an elevator that is closest to him opens up and will not move until he walks onto it, so it can deliver him to the room more quickly. This is another application that basically takes the building and uses it to help the patient with care. So now the clinical staff and the building are working together. There's about 120 different use cases like that. Of the 2 I just gave you, there's 120 use cases that we have identified, written software modules for, and have quantified as what they would save the hospital and give them the opportunity to respond to care and provide an environment like this to a patient. Now, Penn Med, as I said, is one of our largest installations. It's been operating for almost a year now. It was deployed in October 2021. The system cost around $20 million, and they expect that that it will pay for itself in around 20 months, just based on all the different ways that they're leveraging the system. And they are only using 40 of the 120 use cases that they indicated. The system is robust, it works together, and it's integrated together to make sure that the appropriate information is delivered and actions are being taken to optimize everything for all of the staff that we discussed, whether it's administrative people, whether it's IT, facilities people, or clinical people, and it meets all of those needs. Because if you think about what we're talking about here, we're talking about workflows and optimizing those. We've taken a lot of the burden off of nurses as far as answering questions or catching up with what's going on with patients and giving them the opportunity to spend their time delivering care. We've reduced a lot of the paperwork and red tape with regulatory compliance by automatically charting and making sure that everything is time-stamped and noted as it happens. We've created a safety and security method where we can check people as they walk in to make sure that the visitors who are not well don't enter the hospital, or that we understand exactly what the situation with the patient is because of the door sign and the information we're able to provide to the caregiver. We're creating an environment of financial performance optimization by giving us the capability of running the rooms at 0 energy state when they need to, and making sure that everything is operating in a fashion that is not only fault tolerant, but also failure resistant. And all of that leads into better care for the patient, which creates better outcomes and satisfaction for that patient. And all 4 of those user groups that we talked about benefit from that system. This is a real, very surface level, just demonstration of some of the things that this system can do. The possibilities are endless with this, and it really is just basically a quick demonstration to give you an idea of what a smart hospital of the future looks like, utilizing a software that is vendor agnostic. We don't care who makes the equipment, brings everything together so it can be operated and optimized together, and delivers care to both patient and staff. I hope this is helpful to you. before I give this back to Bill, I'd like to ask if there's any questions. I think I'm hearing some background noise. So maybe you're trying to test the microphone or something. I'm very happy to wait for a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're just trying to resolve some static stuff. So my name is Leonard Ruff. I'm an architect and I do data centers. So could you just touch on the isolation of different networks, both in-house and external? How do you handle malware or hacker penetration through a remote consulting link or remote access to the systems?
Well, it'd be very difficult for me to be specific about that at this point, but what I can tell you is EcoStruxure has its own cybersecurity platform built into it, and our system itself is basically insulated against attacks like that. But of course, there's always a way in. So we're constantly monitoring that and putting that together. But as far as specifics, I probably have to get back to you on how we would do that specifically. We'll take it as an action item, and I'll have somebody follow up with you. And if Bill or one of the other guys could make sure that we get the questioner's contact information, we can give them a little bit more detail on the answer.
We can take care of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, one more question. Who has overall
Okay.
control of this system? Is it Schneider? Is it the hospital, or is it another entity?
Well, this is basically up to the hospital to control once we design it and turn it over. And the way the system works is there are software modules that do all these use cases, that do the controlling on this. And so we utilize EcoStruxure software as the base. We have individual modules that do the specific use cases or the functions that we want to do by tying all the equipment together. And that's a process, and it takes quite a long time to integrate everything, get it up and running. Once we've done that, then we just turn it over to the hospital. There is a license involved with the hospital on the hospital side, but the hospital then can either operate it and manage it themselves, or they can contract with us or a third party to manage the software. So it's kind of like whatever the hospital chooses and selects for that. We typically will turn that over to the hospital to operate, and then come in on a break fix basis whenever there's an issue. But they have the opportunity to set parameters and install applications as they like.
Ursula with Performance Power, and it's not a question, just want to say that is one of the most polished presentations I have ever seen. So just very well done.
Thank you. All right. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, Bill, I would love for you to take it back over and facilitate from here.
Thank you. We got it. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, folks.
Our next speaker is joining us via Teams as well. It's Billy Stapleton. He's the channel manager here in the Northwest for Eaton. And Billy will be talking about battery chemistry and UPS technology considerations for network and MDF deployments. So Bill, when you're ready, we'll throw it to Billy.
Not muted. Mute.
Well, we're doing better now? All right.
That works.
We there? Okay. Just saying a little bit of a tough act to follow there. So if somebody else wants to go next, feel free. Just kidding. Billy Stapleton, Partner Development Manager for the Pacific Northwest region for Eaton. I would have loved to have been up there with you guys today, but first 2 weeks of school here, and I have some little ones who brought some nice things home from school, and sharing is caring, but I figured you guys might not want me sharing what they gave me with you, so I opted to go this route. I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation here, and for some of you, this is probably going to be like UPS 101 on IDF and MDF UPS considerations. For other folks, it could be a new and interesting topic. So let me get the screen going, and I'll probably have to flip some screens around here. Okay, am I on the right screen now? Does it say battery chemistry and UPS?
Yeah, looks good.
You're good.
All right, looking good. Okay, so what am I going to cover today? Overview. I have to mention a little bit about Trip Light by Eaton. We're going to cover what I'm talking about when I'm saying a typical UPS and an MDF or an IDF edge environment. What are the topology considerations? What are the battery type considerations? And really how Eaton is fulfilling those needs and looking to the future. So for those of you who didn't know, last year, Trip Light was acquired by Eaton. So you're going to start seeing this nice Trip Light by Eaton logo. Why is it relevant? Well, it does come into to the offering that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on in the presentation. Even though it has been about a year and a half now, there are still some folks out there who have not heard of our acquisition. So when you see Trip Light, just know that they are part of the Eaton family. Okay, so we're going to start out with your typical IDF environment, and IDF can mean different things to different people. When I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about the network edge. Could be a little two-post rack. Somebody's entire IDF or network edge could be, this little thing on the wall right here. All it has is a switch in it. Fewer devices. Typical UPS for this is plug and play. Maybe they need less protection. Maybe they need less runtime. All they want is something to bridge a gap of a couple of seconds if the power goes out. Thing with the IDF is you can have large distributed environments. As they were just talking about in a hospital, a hospital could have 500, IDF, whether it's closets, whether it's racks up in a corner. There could be a lot of these things spread out through numerous locations. Moving on to the MDF. So this is a little bit more robust. It's going to be centralized, and I'm talking about a small to medium MDF. I know a lot of the presentations that folks get into in these meetings, you're talking about the megawatt data centers, hyperscale. I'm talking a little bit smaller here. A lot of the things that are going to be plug and play, again, think more UPS 101. But in the MDF closet, there's going to be more devices, a higher power need, going to have a rack mount, maybe tower, maybe you're doing a centralized option. I'm not going to be touching too much on the centralized options today. I'm sticking with plug and play because that's going to get into more of the chemistry and topology considerations here in a minute. In the MDF rooms, they typically want more robust protection, more runtime, and these are going to be more critical to operations. This is where the servers are going to reside, that if these go down, you can cause data corruption, a whole mess of bad things there. All right, Line Interactive. Eaton loves for us to use these graphs, so I threw it on here. I'm skipping a couple of topologies, and you might wonder why. For those of you familiar, there's a standby UPS, and that's basically, a power brick with some plugs on it that you can go pick up at Best Buy. We're not really sticking these in an IDF or an MDF, so I'm not going to talk too much about a standby UPS. I'm also not going to talk about ferroresonant UPSs. That would be a little bit of a different consideration for different types of environments. But with Line Interactive, that does give you the power failure, power sag, surge, under voltage, over voltage. These are great for typical IDF environments where you may not need quite robust power. So what does all that really mean? Protection from power outages, gives you some minor power fluctuation correction. You want to stick these where the utility power is relatively clean. It's going to save you some money, and you want to put these where the equipment is less sensitive to any type of power disruptions. Moving on to double conversion, you get all those 5 lovely things we talked about, plus you're adding in protection for line noise, frequency variations, switching, transient, and harmonic distortion. So what does that actually mean? You're getting pure clean power to your equipment, 0 transfer time to battery. Again, you might have sensitive equipment in some of these MDF locations where the milliseconds matter. You're going to have more expensive equipment, so you're going to want that more robust protection. I don't know if you have a $50,000 VX rail, putting that double conversion UPS on it's probably a little bit better idea than sticking with line interactive. If you're in the same building as manufacturing or machinery, you're going to get that line noise coming back through the system. And if you don't have transformers throughout the building or some type of other centralized UPS, putting in a double conversion rack UPS will help to keep your IT equipment clean power lasting longer. Again, what if you have a generator? I just mentioned that. That's great. Get yourself a double conversion UPS. And you might say, why? Well, we have this nice little graph here, and the reason is double conversion plays nicely with generators. As you get down into the line interactive, or certainly a standby UPS, as a generator is coming online, you can see by the different color codings here, the utility failure. You're going to go to UPS on battery. With a double conversion, that's only going to happen once, and there's zero transfer time. When you get into line interactive and standby UPSs, it's going to do that a couple of times because there's going to be fluctuations as that generator starts up to come online. Different things start to take advantage of the generator power. Now, UPSs are well built, but somewhere in there could be the opportunity for a dropped load. And even though it might just be for 1 second, again, if you have a critical device behind, say, a line interactive UPS and the power turns off for 1 second, that could be enough to corrupt your data and certainly ruin your day. So if you have a generator on a building, make sure you're putting in a double conversion UPS. Now, something to think about, your MDF, you're probably going to know if you have a generator on that. But it's going to be important to know on those network closets, maybe you do have generator power going to those closets. So you might think, hey, I've got this little network rack, over in the corner. No big deal. I just want to put a line interactive UPS on it. That could be fine if all you have is a single piece of networking equipment on it. But to be safe, I'd stick that double conversion UPS on it. It's going to play much nicer with the generator than going with line interactive. Okay, battery chemistry considerations. So what do you need to think about when you're looking at these IDF, MDF, really any UPS, but again, for our purposes, we're talking about these smaller plug-and-play type units here. The RLA, it's traditional, it's reliable, it's been around for decades, it's available in all UPS sizes from your little 350 VA standby UPS up to your 1.5 megawatt, something that's serving Google, generally a low upfront cost, recyclable. I saw we have some presentations coming up on battery recyclability later. But the latest and greatest, and certainly with benefits, is going to be the lithium-ion. Environmentally friendly, I put a star there because if you've ever seen how they mine lithium, you might not consider it friendly, but as we're advancing in how we extract that from the earth, and again, I believe a future presentation today is going to cover the recyclability of lithium. It becomes a more environmentally friendly option. So what is Eaton doing with some of these battery considerations? I'm not going to touch a lot on VRLA. Again, everybody knows what's out there for VRLA. It's in every size of UPS. They all more or less do the same thing. But looking at lithium, looking at some of the basic considerations, and this is a line interactive UPS right here. It's our 5P1U 1500 VA UPS. If you compare it to a similar lithium versus VRLA battery, you're getting should be 8 to 10 years listed here, but they listed 8 to be a bit more conservative versus 3 or 4 years on that VRLA battery. The recharge time, now this is a big one, much longer on VRLA battery versus lithium ion. So if you're in a situation, and we're going to cover this with the double conversion as well, but if you're in a situation where you have frequent power outages, or you know that you're going to have more charges and discharges, that lithium ion is going to be a little bit better option for you at the 6 times faster recovery. It weighs less, so if you're the one installing it, you probably like lithium. Battery replacement, now that's where things get a little bit interesting. You're not going to replace the lithium ion batteries, at least not in these plug and play units. With a VRLA, you should be replacing it every 3 or 4 years. Not everybody does that, we know that. But if you think about replacing every 3 or 4 years, 2, 3 battery replacements in over an 8 to 10 year period, you're going to be spending $600+. Now, this is an old dollar amount before inflation. I'm sure it's much higher now, whereas the lithium ion battery, it's there for 8 to 10 years, good to go. Very similar when looking at our double conversion 9PX. Again, we have the 8 to 10 years, and what's unique with our 9PX is we offer extended battery modules. So lighter UPS, lighter extended battery modules. What about the footprints? Well, we were looking at some of those IDF closets earlier, and there's not a lot of room in those sometimes. Sometimes it is just one little rack, but hey, maybe you need some extra runtime. You go with a 2U base UPS and a 1U extended battery module, good to go. You get longer runtime at full load, and again, the battery replacement cost. What does that look like over a 10-year period? Set it and forget it. That's kind of the message when it comes to lithium versus VRLA. Do you want to be able to set it and forget it? Possibly. So is it worth it? Total cost of ownership when looking at VRLA versus lithium. There's a little bit more than just the upfront cost. So you're going to spend more upfront for lithium versus a traditional VRLA option. You have the cost of replacement batteries plus the cost of a visit. But if you have dozens, hundreds, if you have these located, all over the place or at sites that are, say, 2 hours away, what is the cost for a technician to drive out, replace a VRLA battery, and drive back? You're taking a couple hours out of somebody's day who could maybe be spent doing something a little bit more valuable. So what is Eaton's approach to fulfilling these needs? Again, with the Triplite acquisition, we were able to fulfill IDF in general with 1K to 3 kVA line interactive UPSs, and where there's the space that's limited, we have the Eaton 5P 1500 rack unit, which is 1U. And MDF and IDF with generators, we have that double conversion lithium option and 1.5 to 3 kVA with up to 4 extended battery modules. So if you don't have that centralized UPS, or you do, I know some folks that have a centralized UPS but still want an hour of runtime on their rack-mounted UPSs as a backup. I'm sorry, not centralized UPS, a generator. You can stick up to 4 extended battery modules on these things. We are the first to market with the double conversion with extended battery modules, although I believe there are more folks coming out with these now. 6 kVA coming soon, and we are looking to bridge the gap between 6 and 20. Right now you can get lithium certainly on 3-phase. I think my cat has some commentary there, so I'm sorry about that. 3-phase, you have a 20 kVA and up, you can get lithium, and you can get lithium at 6K and below. Right now we are looking to bridge the gap between 6 and 20K, and I think it comes down to, what's the demand there, who wants it, and what we're finding out is folks are asking for it. So that is what I have for you. Again, brief 101 IDF, MDF. I went through it as quickly as I could there with the 15-minute time frame. So I want to thank you and open it up to any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions in the room or online? I'm not seeing anybody jumping up and down.
So, Steve Roach with PSC. Interested in the lead times being that's everybody's biggest concern right now.
Sure.
So VRLA versus the lithium-ion, as far as if I ordered something today, what am I likely to get first?
That's going to depend specifically on the model. That's the best answer I can give you. We have stock of some models of both VRLA and lithium and no stock of others with long lead times. I will say some of the global models with the higher voltages, say a 208 volt, might have a little bit longer lead time. We're recovering on those, but it really is model specific. So if you had something in mind, you were wondering, hey, I have a need for a 1500, a 2000, a 3000. Do you have one or both available? Certainly let me know and we can get those answers for you.
All right. Not seeing anything in the chat, so thank you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Billy. Next up is Jake Austin from Sunbelt Rentals, and Jake is going to share with us considerations for selecting the right load bank solution. Jake?
Perfect. Thank you much. Almost there, almost there.
Who's on here?
Well, yeah. Where were you?
Go ahead.
Which one is the one you're working with? Where's your PowerPoint? The PowerPoint clicker, and you can use a handheld mic if you want to walk around.
Oh, gotcha. No, I'm good. I'm good. Hey, how we doing? Good afternoon. I am Jake Austin. This is really an opportunity for me to provide an awareness of Sunbelt rentals in the mission critical data center space and dive a little deeper into what we have to offer from a load bank standpoint and recent changes to the dynamic of our team and what that might mean to you folks who might be involved in data center commissioning and construction, which is a good question. How many folks here kind of find construction of data centers or commissioning in your scope of work? Yep, all right. And how many people here kind of know what a load bank is? Okay, even better, even better. Play to the audience. So I'm gonna start broad from the top and kind of work our way down and then kind of nail it down to Sunbelt load banks. So first, Sunbelt at a glance. Sunbelt, founded in 1983 in Charlotte, North Carolina, still the location of our headquarters and our support offices. Acquired by Ashted Group in 1990. We now have a presence in the US, Canada, and the UK. Launched Pump and Power, our first Pump and Power division in 1997. Launched our kind of first load bank specialty team in 2015. Today we have over 15,000 employees, over 11 billion in rental assets, 14,000 product types, a partridge in a pear tree, an annual revenue of 6 billion, of over 6 billion, with our fiscal year ending in this past May. From a philosophical standpoint, our core beliefs and values, pushing the idea of what a rental company can provide for our clients, delivering exceptional service, empowering team members, and certainly I'd like, putting safety first, both for ourselves and for our clients through training, through continued improvement of our safety and our safety, health, and environmental performance programs, our serious injury and fatality prevention programs. Anyway, just like to highlight, we put safety first for everybody. Today we have multiple divisions, multiple rental divisions with solutions, providing solutions engineered or otherwise, really for any project, general tools, certainly, power and HVAC, pump solutions. Can't see that one. What is the, whatever the other one is, shoring solutions, climate control, and industrial heating. This is kind of a quasi up-to-date look at our current North American footprint. Over 1,000 locations. We're open in all major markets, major metro markets, but arguably kind of two of the most prominent divisions for the 7x24 group are our general tools and power and HVAC services divisions. So general tools, a diverse, over 8,000 types of tools and equipment. They alone have over 500 locations across North America. They certainly lay the foundation and for our group, for the specialty divisions, really lay the foundation for, and solution for any project. And of course, our power and HVAC services. So, really a robust fleet for power generation, HVAC, drying equipment, compressed air, and load banks, which as we'll get into in a little bit. 70 locations across North America. For a long time, we've had a location in Tacoma. We just opened a location south of Portland to help service that market in the Northwest. And that was late last year, and then earlier this year, we opened one up around Everett and Marysville. So hopefully we'll get one in Eastern Washington soon. Both our general tool and our power and HVAC services both have internal mission critical teams. Really, those are in place to help enhance and align our services across the board. Here in the Western US, we have one, Chris McDuffie is our gentleman who handles power and HVAC, and on our general tools, mission critical side, it's actually Tom Balderrama who's with me today. So I work really hand in hand with them, again, really to uncover needs, uncover ways that we can support our clients and services and projects in the Northwest. Which really in a way kind of leads us back to our vision component and being able to provide the right equipment and right solution for any project, and also this motto we have of making it happen for our customers. So Sunbelt has really put strategic emphasis on our load bank game. Again, most of you, it sounds like know what load banks are, right? They're really just enclosures of resistors designed to simulate the load that a power supply or component has been designed to support. We have resistive elements mostly. We can also add reactive components if we need to, for example, bring a generator to its knees and test the full capacity and operation of generators. Sunbelt load bank services. So For a long time, we handled load banks out of our branches as another piece of equipment. About 6 or 7 years ago, we actually acquired Load Banks of America to start a specialty division within power and HVAC, specifically for load banks. So for about 5 or 6 years, we operated with individual geographical branches. 5 branches across the USA had their own individual geographical area. They handled all of the load bank. The personnel at those branches handled all load bank applications within that area. They had their own fleet. They had their own P&L. A typical team was a manager, a rep, a yard associate, and 1 or 2 techs. Our entire team for 5 or 6 years was about 25 people. Until this year, earlier in the spring, we acquired Comrent Load Bank Solutions. You might be aware. They're really our strongest competitor. Arguably the leader in load testing and commissioning applications. Comrent was founded in '97. They started servicing the medium voltage market in 2003. By 2005, really, at the forefront of data center commissioning. Did the first substation test in 2009. In the last year, we provided a test for some turbines in the southeastern US, 180 megawatts of power at one turbine site. So certainly, a broad breadth of technical expertise. And while technically an acquisition of Comrent by Sunbelt, it really was a merging of our teams. From a Sunbelt perspective, we went from 25 people to 110. We tripled our fleet. We certainly now have the largest load banking fleet in the country. I think we have somewhere between 4,000 to 5,000 pieces of gear, most of those load banks. $80 to $100 million probably worth of gear, and a lot more coming in over the next 2 years to remain competitive and have the gear available to support our clients. We really are kind of, I would say, a subdivision now under the power and HVAC umbrella. Load bank division now has our own I almost said vice principal. We have our own vice president, we have our own director, we have our own team. And really with them, we've really adopted the Comrent business model. Instead of 5 individual branches kind of operating as their own kind of silos, we now have adopted a centralized logistic and fleet management team. So the entire country is shared by one unified fleet of gear, of people, of project managers and such. That was another benefit of coming in and merging with Comrent, is we have a much broader project management team. We have a deeper internal support to increase our efficiency. We have special projects teams, special contracts teams. Sunbelt now actually manages Microsoft's fleet of their load banks. So we manage them, we maintain them, ship them out when they need to, bring them back in. And then when they need to, they typically need to turn to us first for those new construction needs. But that was a great feather in our cap, Microsoft. This is just kind of a look at some notable projects, a lot of turbines. We've done hundreds of data center projects. The one not up here is the turbine test that I just mentioned down in the southeast US. We work across multiple markets. We have a utilities team. We have a renewable energy team. We have a team that kind of handles everything else with the exception of mission critical team. So we have a data center team in the US, 4 of us that really head up the load bank endeavors, building relationships and uncovering the needs for our clients. I handle, are you gonna turn? Maybe I'll try this. It didn't, oh, there it goes. So I head up data center endeavors in the Western US, west to Denver, south to the border, and then as well as Hawaii and Alaska. If anybody finds a project there, I'm willing to go anytime. Data center commissioning. So, load banks allow data center operators to test under real world scenarios without connecting to the grid and real world power that can be erratic. You can't control it. It's unpredictable and it's risky. So with load banks, we can simulate real life electrical power and the byproduct of heat in order to provide validation to the quality of the components and ensure that there aren't any faulty components. And if there are, we can replace them or we can repair them, we can test them and move on. So critical components, including, certainly backup generators, either resistive only or again, adding a reactive component to bring it to its knees, UPS systems, validating the operation and discharging the batteries to keep them healthy, HVAC systems, validating the reaction of the systems to the heat that's produced, and then, and monitoring that to test HVAC effectiveness. Bus tracks, PDUs, remote power panels, server racks, anything from a 11.5 server rack load bank to a 6.2, medium voltage resistive reactive unit. Using load banks, it provides greater precision, more flexible to scheduling, more precise control over the critical electrical parameters. The client gets to determine the exact formula of voltage, the current, the load amount. Load banks provide more control over the testing schedule. Once load banks are in place, it's really up to the project manager to determine, it's up to them to determine the entirety of the control, the schedule, the dependence on the grid operator is then eliminated. So the testing duration can be controlled. If something goes wrong, you can stop the test, fix the issue, and then again, retest. So these are really some of the benefits of, again, kind of further benefits of testing with load banks. Validation, validating the room design, the hot and cold aisles, thermal output of the servers, and certainly the effectiveness of the cooling systems and power distribution. We can use load banks, when we use remote controlled load banks, we can lower the cost, the labor costs involved of setting those up. Using Wi-Fi and remote systems now, we don't have to manually go around and adjust each load bank. We can reduce risk and reliability by accurately simulating loads, resistive, again, reactive loads. Driving accountability, we can run silently if you have applications where we can use water-cooled load banks. And then certainly prevention by isolating, correcting issues, establishing baselines, and then forwarding those over to, for maintenance programs, for example. And then we feel we can really help at each step along the way. During planning and design, we have a project management team of about 15, 20 people that can help create a project-specific commissioning plan and schedule. They can clarify roles and responsibilities, develop a commissioning checklist. During design, they can help develop a written commissioning plan, kind of expanding that further, including contingency plans to help mitigate risk. During construction, system tests that could be performed at the subsystem level and as equipment is installed in the facility. And then, acceptance testing, our commissioning, verifying operations and making sure that we're complying with standards and the intended design, and then handing off to operations. Commissioning requirements kind of flow over into the maintenance plan. We can identify mechanisms that need to be, resolved or improved upon, and then test data, again, from commissioning can be used for kind of baseline future tests. Your job is our job. So our current legacy team was really built by focusing on 5 elements: safety, availability, performance, precision, and support. So in choosing, a load bank provider or a commissioning partner, maybe ask yourself what's important, or I can ask you folks, what's important when considering, who you might go to for as an equipment provider or, as a commissioning partner? What might be the big concerns or issues you might be worried about? Responsiveness, got it. What else? Cost. There we go, okay. We certainly can address all of those. Oftentimes what comes up is, we're going to be competitive on cost. It's up to the team to be as responsive as we can. And we have the largest load bank fleet in the country. So if we don't have the gear, then the gear may not exist. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, okay. Right. Right. Oh, no. Not commissioning agent, but a partner in the commissioning process. Yeah. Oftentimes what comes up is lead time. Again, we have the largest fleet in the country, and we have 8 to 10 locations from which to ship them from. The next location we're going to open for a load bank specific branch is actually here in the Northwest, somewhere between here and Portland. So we have gear locally that we can distribute locally, bring back. It can get QA and QC'd here locally, and then get a quick turnaround time, cut down on shipping costs, etc. So that's kind of next on that plan. So lead time, if it's support, we have again a team of 15 to 20 project managers, almost 50 technicians, and then responsive reps is myself, in each individual region. If it's capabilities, again, we've supported some of the largest, testing scenarios on the planet, up to 180 megawatts. If it's experience, we've done this over 75,000 times in the history of the combined companies. If we're not already, we'd love to sit down, have a discussion with you, support you, learn how we might be able to support you, and work with you in the future to deliver successful projects. Scene. Questions?
Got one question from online, and it's, do you rent both AC and DC load banks? I don't even think I've ever seen a DC load bank, but that's the first part. And then what is the largest AC load bank? Can you handle a 1.3 megawatt load?
Not on the DC. So we do rent AC and DC. I'll check and I can get their information. I believe the largest DC load bank we have is a 1,000 amp. I don't know. I can't remember what the voltages are,
right.
But that's about, we don't have a DC load bank that large.
Okay. Yeah, you just said, what's the largest AC load bank?
Largest AC load bank?
Yeah.
Resistive only, it's a 3 megawatt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you hear me? There it is. 2 questions. One, have you ever had the need or do you have the capability to push a genset in commissioning into a leading power factor?
You can use capacity. There are load banks that provide for a leading power factor, capacitive load banks. They're not typically off the shelf. They take a little engineering and design and what used to be a 14-week lead time, now 52-week lead time. But yes.
Okay, thank you. Second question, can you handle weird voltages? Like I'm seeing a lot of my clients going to 415 volt systems.
Sorry, what was the first part of the?
I see a lot of clients going to 415 volt systems. Can you handle 415?
Yeah. We'll provide a 400 kW unit at 480 and then it will just derate. So if you want to do your math, 415 squared divided by 480 squared, and then that gives you your D rate, and then you can apply that to 400. I don't know what the math is, but yes, it's just not a full 400 kW load. We have to derate, and it's, yeah. I'm so glad people ask questions I knew answers to.
Anybody else?
Thanks.
For those of you who are joining us on Teams, you're missing out because we're going to take a 30-minute break. We've got beer and wine and a buffet of hot and cold appetizers in the back here. Help yourselves, and we'll see you in 30 minutes. It says I'm no longer spotlighted. Okay, welcome back. Our next presenter is Eric Hill, excuse me. He is with Cirba Solutions, and he's going to talk to us about battery recycling. And a question that's on a lot of folks' minds is battery recycling with lithium-ion batteries. He's going to cover that topic as well. Eric?
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, all right. Still not presenting? No. Let me try it.
Well, well, this is very odd. It does not appear to be running Teams right now.
Didn't you click that one up to share?
You're in the Teams right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, the up
Yep.
arrow right there.
Okay, there we go.
Now you
And hey.
We good? All right. Yay. Round two. Let's go. There you go. All right. Well, good evening, guys. Thanks so much for your time. Really excited to talk to you guys today about this, energy storage recycling for all chemistries. But today we're really focused on two primary ones that are in the market: lead acid, lithium ion. I'll also show you guys some trends that are happening in the market and really talk about the process, specifically how it works and what we see coming, right? And what's driving the, the network trends right now. So my name's Eric Hill. My title is Director of Business Development at Cirba Solutions. And what we do is really collection, sorting, processing, and education of energy storage and e-waste. Right, so we're established all over the country. We have offices in Canada, down here in California, or Washington, rather. Washington, California, and Ohio and Michigan. And we're rapidly expanding with the, advent of lithium-ion coming online across, especially in the EV market. But yeah, I'll cover that here in a bit. Been around for about 15 years in the energy storage business. I can tell you in the last probably 5 years, I've seen more growth than the previous 10. So it's just a crazy time to be in batteries right now. So the focus, what I'll talk to you guys today about is why to recycle batteries. There are some obvious reasons, but there's more that aren't so obvious. Also, we'll talk about the lead acid recycling process, which probably a lot of you are familiar with, but it's also important to see how it works. Lithium-ion recycling process. There is a common misconception in the market today that lithium-ion batteries cannot be recycled. That is not true. They can be, and they are today actively recycled. We're one of the companies that does it, and there are a few others around. And then data center battery sustainability, right? So what's happening in these data centers that we see from talking to our customers, observing market trends, and really where we see it going and how companies like yourselves that support the data center industry can really help with what we see coming. So why recycle batteries, right? Obviously the environmental benefits are key, right? But it also has very significant economic and safety benefits too. And we really believe in empowering an electric future to accelerate human progress by supporting the electrification efforts that are going on across all applications. EVs, stationary power, that's my world. I come from stationary, and there's a lot of stuff that's really exciting happening there. But Cirba in our name stands for circular battery. We want to create a circular economy process for energy storage. It starts, Is it showing? Okay, I lost it there. Okay, so it starts with collection, right? Collecting the batteries at their end of life or when they're done being used, right? And it goes all the way through project management, sorting and disassembly, diagnostics, and back into battery production or other industrial applications. And again, it has very significant benefits around not just environmentally friendly benefits, but also safety and supply chain benefits as well too. So talking about supply chain, by recovering these elements, it delivers these critical elements back into the supply chain. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's so important, but it has turnkey options for compliance, flexible and adaptable based on the volumes that are out there in the world today. We do all formats, everything from alkaline, your AA's at home that we turn into zinc manganese fertilizer for agriculture production, all the way up to large scale data center disassembly and dismantling destruction. So lead acid, tried and true, been around well over 100 years, and this is a very closed loop, tight knit, recyclable process. You heard one of my colleagues from Eaton, mention on their presentation that's highly recyclable, and that's very true. Lead acid batteries are probably the most recycled product on the planet today. You can reuse about 99% of the product, and probably, I think the estimates are right now, probably about 50 years is the average lifespan of recycled lead inside your battery, which means the battery that's in your car today more likely has lead inside it that's 50 years old that was mined out of the earth, because it's continuously reused every 3 to 5 years. And what happens is it really goes to disassembly, where it's just really taken apart, drained of all its electrolyte, it's smashed, it's crushed, it's put into a breaker, and then it has material separation, where we float the materials and we separate the lead from the plastics and the separator material. That lead then goes into what we call fully recovered metal solid, and it's melted down, created into an ingot, and it goes back to the lead acid manufacturer. A little bit goes to ammunition, so there are still lead out there for the bullets, but majority of it still goes over to the lead acid guys. And it's this closed loop system, and that's the model right now that lithium-ion is trying to emulate. How do we get those materials, rare earths, nickel, cobalt, manganese, even the trace lithium amounts, how do we get those back and reused into the supply chain? Because if you ask the lithium-ion guys 10 years ago what they do for recycling, I don't know, it's that guy's problem. So now they're starting to realize that we can't take that approach, and it's had great strides in the last few years. So this is what happens on the lithium-ion side. Batteries come in, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. You can manually disassemble from the pack level when they come out of the racking, right? So that's removing the cells from the module itself, putting them into a shredder or putting them into a hydrometallurgical process. Shredder just turns it down into a mass, if you will, which I'll show you. So does hydrometallurgical. Hydrometallurgical is just floating the materials and separating them out into this, lithium-ion black mass. This is the new gold rush, if you will, for the EV market. This is where everybody wants to get to on the lithium-ion side. Creating this black mass that extracts nickel, cobalt, lithium, and manganese from it in order to put it back into the supply chain. Right? So here you will hear a lot of processors and recyclers as they come online to get to this stage, and it gets filtered down in various formats from there. But the key question then becomes, well, why is this so important? Why do I have to get to this point? Well, as I noted, the electrification transformation is here, right? EV demand, if anybody's been watching the news lately, obviously EVs are dominating, right? And by 2040, there's going to be about 118 million of these cars on the road. And the auto OEMs are accelerating all their commitments to go primarily electric. We hear from auto OEMs all day, every day. Hey, what am I going to do in 10 years when this battery becomes end of life, right? I mean, we've got these EVs that were coming online, and okay, at 10 years when my, home or my homeowner or my general user of my car wants to recycle their battery, what do I do? The good news is we're building out a lot of infrastructure in this country to support that. And I can tell you firsthand that we talked to all these guys, and they're very committed to this. GM, Toyota, Ford, all the major auto OEMs are building or have invested in the infrastructure. But there's still a problem that exists. There's going to be an imbalance, a significant material imbalance for lithium-ion. And latest projections anywhere put it between 2x, 3x, anywhere depending on the mineral that you look at. So that's why it's so important that we embrace this recycling initiative up front and bring these batteries back to us or another lithium-ion processor that can shorten these, it can lower these gaps and shorten some lead times, right? We're all suffering from lead times right now with supply chains, but this will just continue to compound the problem and get worse, especially with the demand ramping up. And it will also help close the material supply gap around end-of-life batteries for recycling and the scrap that comes out, right? Because as the ramp up goes up, the scrap's going to go up. So that means there's going to be a lot more coming out that needs to be recycled as well, too. So what do we see happening specifically in data centers, right? I mean, this is my background. This is where I come from a little bit. It's no secret power consumption's on the rise. It continues to go up. Whatever forecast you look at, they all have, small, medium, large, but the power trend is going up. Especially with COVID, with everybody at home, everybody's using their devices at home, the power is needed. Yeah, question?
Quick
This one is AKCP, and this one is a paper that they did back in 2015 on electricity usage of communication tech. So again, what do we see in the future, right? Designing to integrate energy efficiency is key. I mean, we've all read articles or been to conferences and papers and seen around data center sustainability. You know, immersion cooling, liquid coolings get a lot of attention. Using higher efficiency UPS systems, having that sustainability electronic component design. I actually just came from a conference in Germany last week and around IT and EV. And there's new laws and regulations around energy storage being passed where these manufacturers now are going to have to show how much percentage of recycled material from rare earth elements are going into their batteries. So taking into consideration sustainable electronic component design is very key. And then higher power usage awareness, right, with our PUE scores and metrics and things like that. Demand response is getting a lot of attention now too as well. You know, exploring the storage increases to support that, which reduces grid dependency and diesel generator dependency. There's an article that you'll see here that we reference with Microsoft trialing grid interactive UPS systems in Ireland. This is really common right now in the power utility market in DERs and microgrids and we see that coming online more and more often. You generate your power where it's used and don't transmit the power to where you need it, which means reduced footprint, higher energy density, higher power transfers. There's a lot of alternative chemistries that are being deployed as well. We'll talk about that here in a minute. You know, fuel cells are having their day in the sun, flow batteries, nickel zinc, sodium ion, things like that. Those are all important. But lithium ion and lead acid are going to continue to meet those challenges today. But there are some hurdles depending on where you go, costs. We've talked about availability a lot. You know, there is a significant supply chain crunch. I still talk to my contacts in the lead acid market and they just can't hire enough people to put in the factories right now. So they're having a significant bottle squeeze and trying to build these things. But the key takeaway here is establishing those circular plans is vital. Not only environmentally friendly, but it's going to keep your supply chain going so we don't have these problems continuously to perpetuate themselves down the road. Again, talking about long duration storage, right? Using these grid interactive UPS systems in both high power and high energy density, depending on your application, it's going to reduce that dependency on fossil fuel generation and backup, right? So you use the energy when it's supported to support increases in demand. This is really big right now on the residential side and the light commercial side that we see, especially in pockets of California where they take advantage of the SGIP program to self-generate their own power. We continue to see that expanding dramatically tenfold. DERs and microgrids are going to continue to dominate. Energy arbitrage, it's very similar to demand response, but you know, use your power at lower cost rates. Voltage frequency regs, sags and spikes. You know, my Eaton colleague mentioned that as being one of the advantages of their equipment, and that's absolutely true. Continuing to have those equipment to carry through sags and spikes is important. And long duration backup when grid connectivity goes down. I mean, if you look at the latest CAIDI and SAIDI stats, you know, published from the EIA, grid frequency outages and the duration of the outage continues to increase. And so having that interconnected dependency over long periods of time will be key. And again, having those large scale deployments now that are being trialed that are really helping to solve this problem, right? The Dublin data center is one example that Microsoft is doing. We hear a lot about Equinix and their fuel cells that they're working on and a few other trials that are ongoing. But you know, the good news is the data center industry is really taking it seriously, and we're excited to support this industry because you guys are probably one of the first ones that, excuse me, really adopted lithium-ion stationary technology. Telecom and broadband, these guys are still kind of playing around with it, haven't really gotten into it yet. Renewable energies is obviously a big one, but in the traditional three, what we call telecom, broadband, data centers kind of leading the way in that. But there are other technology advancements that we see coming, right? So I'm sure my colleagues at Toshiba will talk about this as well too, but solid state, that's getting a lot of traction in the EV world. It's eliminating the range anxiety fear, having these great energy density improvements. Silicon additives as well too. There's a cool company here locally in Woodinville called Group 14. They're working on doing silica additives to the lithium-ion production, where you can basically improve energy density up to 30 to 40%, and they're winning deals with these large auto OEMs. Lithium sulfur, it's more of a short duration, high power, but there are some auto OEMs and some other manufacturer OEMs that are playing around with it. The military really is interested in this because they consider it safer than traditional lithium-ion. Lithium air, they use the same concepts as zinc air and fuel cells, but it's got a catalyst or like a super capacitor to help jumpstart it and move it and push the energy through. And sodium-ion, right? So you have all the benefits of lithium-ion, but you use abundant raw materials like sodium to continue to harness and push the energy through. It could prove to be an alternative as we know it today, and some of the big lithium-ion producers are experimenting with it. CATL, it's probably the biggest one in China, next to BYD. They are playing around with sodium-ion right now too as well. Again, the key thing here is to really have a proven circular battery plan for your batteries as they become offline, right? And that's what we do. Again, full-scale service offerings, customizable solutions. We handle all battery types, recycling program, project management. I spend a lot of my day doing decom planning with old telecom sites, old broadband sites, things like that. But that's the key takeaway here is really prepare now for the future and also understand that it's coming, and there needs to be a plan in place. And that's what we do. We help support companies like everybody in the room here to do that. And that's it. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Give it a second. Okay.
There it is.
Not really a question, but a comment. You touched on the decom plans.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point out and reinforce that in the next edition of the International Fire Code, as part of your permit middle package, you're going to have to submit a commissioning plan for your batteries and a decommissioning plan. So be ready for that.
Yep.
And your assistance with that, that's obviously a good resource, a place to go, because we had to basically make some stuff up because our client did not have a decom plan for the batteries. So it's a code requirement. California, it's already in place, but it's coming next summer probably to Washington and the rest of the country with the adoption of the 2021 International Fire Code.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, we're absolutely happy to help with that. And we do help major telecom and data center operators today with that. NFPA 855 and part of the IFC is really governing a lot of that. Some of the UL standards too. 9540A is on the front side for commissioning for new sites to do fire propagation testing, but they are talking about end of life as well too. So yeah, we're happy to help with that.
You mentioned earlier that you'd just been in Germany and that there were some requirements that were coming up for recycled materials in batteries.
Yeah.
Is that primarily the EU at this point, or is it starting to become global?
Well, we look at the EU as the canary in the coal mine, right? So we're typically 10 years behind them when it comes to stuff like this. I will tell you that the Department of Energy has put out RFIs requesting information on circularity of energy storage, recovering those raw materials and those critical minerals that come out of the batteries. And we're presenting to some of the key individuals there on how that's actually done. Right, so there's a lot of money, a lot of investment going into this. So on the back end, you see a lot of investment with the on the front end, you see a lot of investment with the gigafactories, but they're also taking into consideration the back end to create that closed loop that's circular, so that black mass can go back to lithium-ion manufacturing. But it's getting very strict in the EU. They're talking about you have to meet certain compliant regulations on percentage of cobalt, nickel, manganese material that goes back into your new lithium-ion production. It also talks about the purity of your black mass. It has to be up to a certain percentage of purity so that you can maintain that power and energy density. So I foresee it coming here too, but not for a while.
So I have another question. So
yeah,
as someone who sells batteries to service clients, a lot of times people ask for scrap credits and things like that when we're talking about VRLA. As far as the cost associated today with recycling lithium, what does that look like? Because, I mean, to be honest, this is the first time I'm hearing about this type of technology being available seemingly at this scale.
Yeah, good question. I'll give you the typical battery manufacturer response. It depends. But no, in general, VRLA, FLA, all the lead acid chemistries give you some level of a credit or a rebate back per pound. Lithium-ion's getting there, and it does actually pay per pound in certain instances and in certain volume. Primarily NMC, NCA, lithium titanate, or LMO typically pay some kind of a credit. The one that's the biggest challenge right now is iron phosphate, because there's really no recoverable materials inside that. I know iron phosphate's getting a lot of attention and it's growing in popularity, but that's one of their biggest hurdles right now. So to put it in perspective, you can get anywhere between, again, don't quote me on this number, but it's a range, anywhere between a 10 cent to a 40 cent rebate per pound for NMC. Whereas on the reverse side, iron phosphate will cost you about $2 a pound to recycle. So a pretty significant delta. Now they're trying to improve that, but the technology is just not there yet. Other questions, comments? That's it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Our next speaker is Jesus Penalver from Toshiba International. Jesus is an applications engineer, and he's going to talk about lithium-ion battery chemistry considerations. Bill, have we got it on Teams? Nope. Okay. All right. Still not there? No. Bill, that's what I'm doing.
Where's Teams? Teams. Give me a second here. If I can help. Which one would it be?
That one.
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
We're good? Okay. Thank you.
If you guys come back in November, we might
actually. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Welcome to my 90-minute presentation. Just kidding. It's going to be like 30 minutes. Eric, if I may, I want to answer a little bit more about the answer for recycling lithium-ion batteries. Basically, right now, what we're looking at, specifically Toshiba with the LTO technology, is more like repurposing them because they're going to have so much life after they're done with the data center application that they're going to be repurposed. And then after that, they're going to be recycled. The repurposing is mostly going to be utilities or electric vehicles. Okay, so. I'm going to be skipping through several of the slides because this is more like a 45-minute presentation, and I don't know where towards the end of it, so I want to be kind and make it like a 30-minute presentation, and we're going to take it from here. UL does have a definition for what a lithium-ion battery is. They put it out back in 2013. There are different chemistries, different applications, right? So we need to be looking at what is used in data centers today. Mainly, there's three chemistries. That's going to be NMC, it's going to be LFP, and then lithium titanate. Now, I want to draw your attention here to the NMC, how many cycles? It's about 4,000 cycles, give or take. LFP is about 5,000 cycles, right? VRLA, I'm going to say 500 cycles because it varies between 350 to 600. So let's just say 500 cycles. So you can see you can get a tenfold of as far as life cycles between VRLA and lithium-ion batteries. So that's one of the advantages of it. The other one is LTO here at the bottom, and that's the one that Toshiba makes. That's 20,000 cycles, hence the repurposing, okay, of the batteries. We've been working on lithium-ion batteries for some time now. It's not 10 years, it's more like since early 1990s. And what makes lithium titanate different from NMC and LFP is the lithium titanate. And how? Because we substituted the anode with carbon to lithium titanate. And that gives us the how and the why were different as far as the chemistries. Safety was number one concern. And then after that, it has to be, it has to last a long time. So long as state of charge, one thing I want to draw your attention to, with VRLAs, we get floating voltage. So we charge the battery, we float it, we keep it floating, right? That's what they're designed for. With lithium-ion batteries, all chemistries, you remove that voltage or floating voltage or current. So you bring it up to 100% SOC, which is state of charge, and then you remove that element. Hence, that's one of the requirements for all the lithium-ion batteries within UL to prevent and or avoid thermal runaway. That's the main cause for that. Okay, that's why that's done. We are all familiar with this. Back in Korea, back in 2018, there were 16 different fires caused within the ESS. And if you can see here at the bottom, short circuit, whether conductive containment or lithium metal plating. That was the major causes for those. And that's one of the reasons that we chose LTO versus the other two chemistries to develop it. Internal shorts are caused by two main, it's degradation and contamination. And then there's external shorts. For the external shorts, there's nothing we can do because that's going to be an accident. So it's more about how do you react to that, right? For the internal ones, it's all about processes and designs and how do you react to that too. Conventional lithium-ion battery with carbon anode, you're going to have dendrite formation, whether that's because you use them in cold weather or you use them at different profiles or whatnot. With lithium titanate, that phenomenon doesn't happen because it's lithium titanate versus the carbon in the anode. This is a better description. This is a picture of that dendrite formation right there. Toshiba designs and manufactures its own battery. It sells in Japan. And this is the process that lithium-ion batteries go through. Is very automated. It's very few, if any, human intervention on it. But this is the way you have to have it to ensure reliability of the cells. Within VRLAs, we know that once you go past 6 strings, it's going to be difficult to parallel more strings unless you get a special permission from the vendors because of equal impedances and whatnot. Within lithium-ion batteries, their internal impedance is very low. So you need to make sure those are matched as equally as possible. And hence, the fact that you're going to parallel 6, 8, or 12 strings is not an issue anymore, as long as your process to manufacture them is, gives you the right or precise impedances. So in this case, we have a 6-month run for the capacity and the impedance, and as you can see, they're clustered together, and that's the way you want your batteries to be manufactured. It offers lower internal resistance. Number one enemy for batteries is going to be heat. So by lowering the internal resistance, you lower also the internal heat generated when charging and discharging those batteries. Now, we're going to talk about more about heat internally here in a minute. One of the positive results of using LTO in the anode is going to be the fact that it does a phase transformation, if you will, or which prevents the thermal runaway. So what happens is the lithium titanate, titanium oxide, when there's an internal short, the oxygen molecules going around that external metal that is there in the internal, in the junction that we can see. So by doing that, it slows down the voltage, or I should say the thermal transmission, and so there's no thermal runaway. This is a better picture right here. If you can see on the top left-hand side, you have voltage. It goes down almost to 0, and so now you're going to have energy conversion. So what happens to potential voltage energy? It has to be converted to heat, right? So that heat is going to be bottom red right there. It goes up to like 300 degrees C. With lithium titanate, what happens is it's that energy transformation still happens, but it happens over a longer period of time so that the heat rise is minimal. And as we can see that right there in the graph, it's about 80 degrees C. Hint, no thermal runaway. This is a test where we literally crash some of the different cells to confirm what happens. And with LTO, there is no smoke, there is no fire. One point I want to bring up is this was done before the NFPA 855 introduced the actual lithium-ion batteries into their scope. So this is done before that. See if I can get this going here. This is a test, pretty similar to UL 9540A when it's done for a puncture test. This is carbon-based anode, 25C, 4.2 degrees. I'm sorry, 4.2 volts. "14 seconds into the test, temperature reached 466 degrees. With lithium titanate, 21 degrees C, 2.95 volts. There's a time sweep. We waited hour and 20 minutes. Maximum temperature reached 48 C, 2.95 volts. Any questions so far? We're good? Am I going too fast? No? Yes, sir. Yes. How long does it stay fully? It does, but it's a lot slower than VRLA because, as we discussed, the internal impedance is very low. So the self-discharging is also very low. And so typically you're going to get a year plus before you have to recharge those batteries. And it's going to depend on the sensitivity and how the threshold that you have for dipping it, right? How low you can go. If you can go 0.5 or 0.7 volts, then it might be a little bit sooner than the 1 year. But that's, it can last up to 1 year in the shelf, basically, okay? SOC, state of charge right there, is the main difference as far as definitions between VRLA and lithium-ion batteries, and that's in general for all chemistries. We can see in this chart, the 17,000 cycles is 80%. Now, in the United States, a data center would not see that, right? We're going to see 2 of them a year, maybe. And then if you do testing once a quarter, that's going to be 6. So let's round up to 10. 10 per year times 10 years, that's 100. Times 2, that's 20 years, that's 200. There's still plenty of life in the battery itself to be repurposed. And that's why we're looking at being repurposed. Also, one more thing that it provides is the benefit that beginning of life backup time with LTO is the same as end of life backup time. So if you were to get 3 minutes beginning of life for 2 megawatts, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you're going to expect the same 2 minutes for a 2 megawatt. We spoke about internal heat, and so these graphs show that we have the carbon anode where you charge and discharge, and internally the molecules go through some heating process, and that the volume of that compound increases or decreases depending on where you are, 5 to 15%. So that puts a little bit of a pressure on the entire structure. Where you have LTO is basically 0, is right around the 1.5%. This is a positive side effect, not necessarily benefits the data center, because I don't see anybody here saying, I want to run my data center at 10C or at 0C, right? So, but it is a positive in the sense that it is elastic with temperature. So if you use the LTO batteries at a lower temperature than the 25C, you're going to lose capacity, while the environment is at that temperature. Once your temperature comes up, then you regain that capacity, whereas the other two chemistries, you lose the capacity. So for LTO, we have no dendrite formation, no swelling, and self-healing mechanism. So that makes for a simple battery pack a long life. These are the three main chemistries for data centers: NMC, iron phosphate, and lithium titanate. Now, there is something that we have to give from an engineering point of view, right? Not everything is positive. There's some compromises you need to make. So the one for LTO is going to be energy density. The energy density of the power pack is less nominally than it is for the other two chemistries, NMC and iron phosphate. So you can see here voltage is 3.6, 3.3, and your specific energy is 150, 110, and we're at 90 watt-hours per kilogram. Now, that's nominally. Once you actually install and use the batteries, that specific energy density delta becomes less because you have the fact that you can only use 80% of this 3.3. So same as VRLA, right? A VRLA, we floated them at 2.25, but you can only discharge them to 1.67 or 1.75, depending on the application. So the other one, you can't use the other energy there. Same thing for lithium-ion batteries, very similar. As far as the discharge rate and charge rate, that's why they are very power dense as the LTO, because you can go AC. So in other words, you can take 8 times the amp power or the amps of the capacity of the cell. And you can recharge it at the same rate. Cycle life, 4,000, 5,000, 17,000, and then with UL 9540A, the testing, it was proven again that there is no fire, there's no smoke, there is obviously venting because you have volume, it's enclosed, you put pressure on it, you put temperature on it, something's gonna give, so it vents. These are the different ULs that are available, and we meet all of them, 1642, 1973. I was surprised to recently learn the fact that UL 9540, not everybody has it. We were the only ones that had it 3 months ago. I don't know if anybody has gone through the process 3 months, in the recent time, but we are the only ones that have the UL 9540. UL 9540 is mainly whether the ESS and the rectifier or UPS can play together nicely, and that's basically what it is. We're the only ones that have that one. Obviously, NFPA 55 is a code. Depends on your chemistry and the UL 9548 test results is whether you can get waivers, for example, for the 3 feet separation between groupings and things like that. NFPA 55, again, we also get waiver for the 600 kilowatt max hour for a non-dedicated building, as far as LTO is concerned. Because there is no fire, there is no smoke, and so therefore we've been able to secure those waivers. Now, does that mean that we're gonna get those waivers in every jurisdiction? We don't know, right? Because AHJ, they're different from municipality to municipality. What we've been able to find out is the fact that if we work with a fire engineer to whom we present the test from UL 9548 and they design it, they stamp it, and they present it to the AHJ, they're more willing to look at the waivers and consider them because now they know that somebody that does that for a living has to stamp it, and quite literally they carry they carry all the risk now. Yes. The UL 9540A, okay? So just to add to that, because it is Santa Clara, it is a little bit different. We installed several of the lithium-ion batteries in there. And then when they said that, then the customers were changing to VRLA. And then a few months later, they're like, no, we're okay now. You can do the lithium-ion battery back again. So yeah, nothing we can do on that. As far as the actual cell, all three different chemistries are going to be very similar as far as how we package those cells. When you compare a jar VRLA to lithium-ion in general, you're going to have about a 1/5 weight differential. Okay, so in this case, 150 versus 31 pounds. It's a big difference. Now, once you put in the entire solution, your delta differential is not going to be 1/5, but it is going to be like 1/3 at least. It's going to be substantial. So if you're doing replacements, it helps because it's less weight, but you take more advantage of it if you are doing a build, because now your concrete is different. Right now, instead of saying I need to support, say, 50,000 pounds, now it's going to be more like 17,000 pounds. So the specs vary a lot. There's a lot of savings to be had. If you are UL listed, 1973 specifically, the lithium-ion batteries need to be monitored at the cell level. So they need to be monitored for, be able to provide current voltage, and then temperature can be done at the jar level. So all those three parameters in some way, shape, or form need to be reported for each cell within the string. And then obviously from there it goes to the string, and then from the string goes to the building management system. And that's for all lithium-ion batteries. LTO has had applications in different industries, automotive being one of them, robotics, transit bus, and then commercial vehicles. So the fact that they're able to operate and they've been tested and are operating in these other harsh environments, for them to operate within a data center is literally a walk in the park. And just to summarize here, safe, high discharge rate, high temperature, they can operate up to 40 degrees C. So another savings for the cooling, and then a 12-year warranty. So not only is it 17,000 cycles, but it's also a 12-year warranty on the battery, and it is not prorated, it's full warranty. So and that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions, either in the room or online?
Everybody's like, I want to go home.
So one of the pictures you showed, it looked like there were IP ports. Is that you would actually hook up the monitoring to straight IP and be able to aggregate that?
That is correct. So each jar sends its data to a battery management system, which is for the string or the cabinet.
Right.
And then from there, there's different ways of going about it. You can collect all the data from different cabinets into a host and then send it over IP, or you can do individually for each cabinet. But yes, it goes directly into them, and they get access to the actual data points for each of the cells.
Nice, thank you.
Is that internet protocol or is that CAN bus?
So internally it's CAN bus, but for reporting to the customer is going to be IP.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Nobody online? Everybody awake online?
Okay. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, that wraps this one up. I appreciate everybody showing up today and putting up with our technical fun. The next meeting is planned for November 15th. We are interested in speakers for that meeting. If anyone has a topic that they'd like to present on or would suggest someone else could present on, please reach out to myself, Bill, or another member of the board. And with that, we'll close this thing down. Thank you.